Our scripture reading this morning is familiar to all of us. However, I invite you to listen with new ears and see if there isn't something in here that you hadn't noticed before. This is the reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who's been born King of the Jews? For we have observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people, Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go, search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
These wise sages from the East were focused. It is not a short journey across the deserts and mountains of the ancient Near East to get to the little tiny town of Bethlehem. It must have taken them months, perhaps years, to get there. And yet they kept following that star until it stopped, and they knew they had reached their destination. This is a story about focus. That star isn't where we lived, just a few hours north of my parents in Indiana. But every vacation opportunity we could, we got on a plane and we came west. We would visit BJ's parents in Oregon near Portland and then head to the coast and spend every possible moment up and down the Pacific shores, for that was our spiritual home. And we would tell everyone we knew, that's where we're going to end up. That's where we're going to end up. Every dollar we saved, and there weren't that many since most of them were going to Boston University, but every dollar we saved went into that account, that dream account of when we would end up on the West Coast. I think we thought at that time it would be a vacation home, maybe a retirement home one day down the road, but then unexpectedly, it happened sooner. BJ received a call after he finished his doctoral work to become the pastor on Fox Island, Washington. So our first phone calls were to our parents. BJ's parents were overjoyed that we were going to be closer to home, and my parents were teary and sad that we were leaving the Midwest. None of that surprised us. But what surprised us was how shocked my parents were. We said, well, as long as we've been together, we've said, we're going to end up on the West Coast. Well, we knew you always said it, but we didn't think you'd ever actually do it. BJ and I, on the other hand, were neither shocked nor puzzled because we had a clarity of vision about where we were supposed to end up. This is our spiritual home, these shores of the Pacific, the waves crashing, the sand beneath our feet, the stony rocks of the cliffs. There's something about the Pacific Rim that says to us, Spirit is here. We had a vision, and God got us to that vision much more quickly than we could have done so on our own. But that's what happens when you get clear about God's vision for your life. That's what happened with those sages. That kind of a trip usually gets interrupted. That kind of a trip usually would end up in death or disaster. And yet it ended up with them paying homage to the child Jesus when the star stopped where he was. That focus led them to this tiny little unknown area of the Roman Empire where they found a king. This star in Matthew's birth story of Jesus may or may not have been a real star. The point of this story is not whether this was some mysterious astronomical phenomenon. As far as I know, stars don't actually stop over any given town. And it's probably not even a magical astrological sign. Rather, this was a clear vision. It was a focal point that led a group of highly educated, powerful, wealthy rulers from another part of the world come to the place of Judaism, the place where the king would be born in this little tiny unknown town, Bethlehem. I think this is not the story of a star as much as it's the story of focus. What can happen when we are clear about where God is guiding us and we're willing to go there no matter what? And that is a good message for the new year, don't you think? Because each year we're invited onto a journey. And this year is no less, right? This is the journey into 2019. What are we, 6 days into 2019? How's your journey so far? Okay, I don't need a report unless you want to give it to me at coffee hour, but if you're like lots of people, you've been thinking about the year past and the year ahead, maybe making some New Year's resolutions. You don't have to admit to those either. Lots of people make New Year's resolutions, and some of them actually fulfill them all year long. But most of us last about a week or two, maybe a month if we're really diligent. But finding a focus for the new year can guide your journey all year long. Discerning God's vision for your life this year could be the guiding star that makes this your best year yet. When you have clarity on that focus or that vision or even a theme for the year, it's much easier to navigate the twists and the turns along the way. So that's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to give each other some time to think and pray about the year ahead. What theme might really nourish you this year? Might help you stay focused to keep moving toward God's purpose for your life? Some of us may find that vision by really clarifying our sense of call and purpose. Am I called to be a teacher this year? Am I called to be a helper this year? Is God needing me to lead or to follow? Is God calling you to start something new or strengthen some part of your family? Or maybe focus and develop a certain talent you've been given? Share a specific gift more generously or in a new way? These are all questions that can help you discern your purpose, what God's call is for your life right now, or vocatio, as we often refer to it here at Community Church. But your focus for the year ahead doesn't necessarily have to be about your purpose or your vocatio. That might seem too big or overwhelming. I have a friend who always picks a theme for the year ahead. And this year he told me his theme is kindness. I'm going to be kind this year, Mary. Now, I think he's a pretty kind guy, but I think his wife had another story this year because they merged their a business, already a big business, into a bigger business. And so she didn't see much of him, and he said, well, this was the one my wife suggested. I'm like, okay, I think you're going with that theme. But seriously, he said, every move I make this year in business, in family, in friendship, I'm going to say to myself, before I make the move, I'm first going to be kind. What a beautiful theme to carry him through the year ahead. I have another friend, a pastor, who's very busy and kind of got overwhelmed with too much charitable work in addition to pastoring her church this past year. And she said, this year my theme is healthy. Every decision I make, everything I put on the calendar, the question is healthy. Healthy spiritually, physically, relationally, healthy for my family, healthy for me. That's her theme. Whatever might help you align your life with God this year, what might help you really live into God's purpose for you, that can be your focus. That can be your guiding star to get you to Bethlehem next December 25th, all the way to Epiphany on January 6th. So I want to give you a little bit of time of silence to focus on this question. There's even some place, if you're a note taker, in the back of your worship handout where you can take some notes for yourself. But most importantly, I want you to pray and focus on what might be God's focus for your year ahead. What purpose do you discern God has for your life this year? What theme can guide you? Let's take a few minutes to think and pray silently together.